would you do if you were not afraid? If you weren't afraid, what would you do? If you weren't afraid of not having enough money or running out of time, if you weren't afraid of being ridiculed or perhaps scorned, if you weren't afraid of the unknown or perhaps afraid of failure, what would you do? There's nothing to hold you back except you. What is your dream? You know that dream that you've shoved way down into the deepest recesses of your heart and you're afraid to let it out? What is that dream? What is it that you really, really want to do? I challenge you to do it. Make a commitment and then do it. You're only limited by your own imagination. Don't be afraid to let it fly. So who am I? And why am I telling you to live your dream? I am mom to a family on bikes. We're a family of 4 who recently rode our bicycles from Alaska to Argentina. Yes, I said bicycles. Yes, I said with children. It was magic. Our journey was about as far out of my comfort zone as is possible to be. And I'll admit that when my husband first brought up the idea, I thought he was crazy. Do you realize, dear husband, that we are parents? We have children. You know those little live human beings running around the house? Yeah, them. Parents with children don't take off on bicycles to ride around the world. And yet, as time marched on, and that husband of mine kept talking about quitting his job and taking off on these bikes, I figured I needed to take him seriously. As I thought about what he wanted to do, I realized that my greatest fear was the fear of failure. I was afraid to get on my bike and start off to begin with because I didn't know if I could do it. Could I really ride a heavy bike all day long and find food for the 4 of us and get the tent set up every morning, every evening and take it down every morning? Could I really do all of that and still be mom to my precious boys? I very nearly never took that very first pedal stroke because I was afraid that I would fail. And then one day, I had that eureka moment, that moment that we all wait for. That day, I started thinking about this whole idea of failure. And I realized that if I never set out, I would fail for sure. If I got on my bike and I started pedaling, I could fail. I figured I had a 50-50 chance of succeeding in what we set out to do. But if I never took that first pedal stroke in the first place, I had a 100% chance of failure. And when I stopped and thought about it from that angle, it made no sense to not take off. A few days later, we went down to the bike store and we bought some bikes and have never looked back. Since that day, we've spent a total of 4 years cycling 27,000 miles as a family. We've created more memories than most families do in a lifetime. I'm not going to say it was easy to face that fear of failure, that fear of humiliation of failure, the agony of defeat of failing. And yet, as I look back on it now, I realize that facing that failure and making the decision to go, even though I had a chance of failing, was the best decision I ever made in my life. I want to share with you the words of a dear friend of mine. Shortly after her son committed suicide, I knocked on her door, not sure what I was going to say. And in the end, she was the one who had words of wisdom for me. Lisa came to the door and she gave me the biggest hug I'd ever had. And as tears were streaming down her face, she said, "Nancy, take advantage of every moment. Don't put it off. Tomorrow may never come." And so I challenge you, whatever that dream is that you have been hiding inside, afraid to let it out for whatever reason, whether you're afraid of the unknown, afraid of failure, afraid of what people will say, pull that dream out and breathe some life into it. What is it that you would do if you were not afraid? I challenge you to do it. Don't put it off. Take advantage of every day. Tomorrow may never come.